He came home early, the kind of early that makes walls hold their breath and shadows cling tighter to corners. The garage door had barely finished closing when the maid lifted one trembling finger and begged him to stay quiet, her eyes wide with a fear that didn't belong to her alone. Something was wrong upstairs, something that had been hidden behind locked doors and forced smiles, and whatever it was had been counting on him not being there. In that frozen moment, with the house unusually silent and his heart already pounding, he understood that the truth waiting beyond the hallway would change everything he believed about loyalty, power, and mercy. If you believe in kindness and second chances, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel, Only Kindness, right now, because stories like this remind us how one decision can save a life. Ronan Blackridge had led men through storms of asphalt and iron, had faced rival clubs and prison gates without blinking, yet nothing in his life prepared him for the quiet terror in his own home. The Hells Angels leader was known across counties as a force of will, a man whose presence could settle chaos with a glance, but the silence of his mansion felt heavier than any roar of engines. He had returned early from a ride meant to clear his head after months of pressure, unaware that fate had rearranged his schedule for a reason far greater than rest. As he stepped inside, boots still dusty, the scent of cleaning solution mixed with something sour, something wrong, and his instincts tightened like a clenched fist. The maid, a middle-aged woman named Maribel Cruz who had worked there for years, was usually calm and efficient, invisible in the way people who serve learn to be. That day she looked like someone standing on the edge of a cliff. Her hands shook as she motioned him to listen, her gaze darting toward the staircase. Ronan noticed small details that made his stomach drop, a vase knocked slightly out of place, a smear on the banister that looked like it had been hastily wiped. The house had a heartbeat now, slow and frightened, and it wasn't his. Ronan moved through the hallway with the controlled patience that had kept him alive for decades. Each step felt like a betrayal of his own authority, because leaders weren't supposed to creep in their own homes. As he reached the door to the guest suite upstairs, a room rarely used, he felt a surge of anger mixed with dread. The power he carried in the outside world suddenly felt useless if he had failed to protect what was under his roof. He had built this place as a sanctuary, a fortress of privacy and order, and now it felt violated. Inside that room, he found the reason Maribel's eyes had begged him to be silent. A young woman sat on the floor, knees drawn to her chest, her face pale and bruised, her uniform torn in places that spoke of panic and restraint. Her name was Alina Voss, a new housekeeper hired through an agency, barely 22, far from family and desperate for work. She looked up at him with a fear so raw it stripped away every title he carried. In that instant, Ronan Blackridge was no longer a feared leader, he was a witness to something unforgivable. The truth unfolded without words, written in the marks on her skin and the way she flinched at every sound. Someone close, someone trusted enough to move freely in the house, had taken advantage of his absence. Ronan's chest burned with a rage that threatened to consume him, but beneath it was something colder and more powerful, a resolve to make this right without adding more violence to an already broken moment. He realized then that leadership wasn't about how hard you could strike, but about how deeply you could protect. Ronan acted with precision. He ensured Alina was safe, wrapped in warmth and dignity, and called for medical help that would come quietly and quickly. Maribel stayed by her side, whispering comfort and holding her hand like a mother would. As the wheels of justice began to turn, Ronan faced a reckoning within himself. The man responsible had worn his trust like a shield, and that betrayal cut deeper than any enemy's blade. Removing him from the house and the club was swift and absolute, but punishment alone felt hollow compared to the damage done. In the days that followed, Ronan's home became a place of healing rather than fear. Alina was given time, support, and a choice, something she hadn't been afforded before. Ronan arranged counseling, legal protection, and a safe place for her to stay, not as a favor, but as a responsibility. He confronted the quiet truth that power could either shield the vulnerable or crush them, and that the line between the two was drawn by everyday decisions, not grand speeches. The story spread quietly, not as gossip, but as a lesson. Men who followed Ronan saw a different kind of strength, one that refused to look away when silence would have been easier. Maribel, once invisible, became a reminder that courage doesn't always roar, sometimes it whispers at the exact moment it needs to be heard. And Alina, though scarred, began to reclaim pieces of herself, discovering that survival could coexist with hope. Ronan often stood alone in the hallway at night, replaying the moment he came home early and almost didn't listen. He understood how close he had come to missing the chance to stop something terrible, how easily fear could have been locked away with that door. The shock of that day changed the rhythm of his life, softening hard edges without dulling his sense of justice. He learned that kindness, when backed by action, could be the most radical force of all. If this story touched your heart, please like, share, and subscribe to Only Kindness, so more people can be reminded that compassion can exist in unexpected places. Before this story ends, we ask you to comment below and share what kindness means to you, because your voice might be the one someone else needs to hear. Ronan Blackridge came home early that day thinking he would rest, but instead he woke up to a truth that demanded courage of a different kind. In choosing to listen, to act, and to protect, he proved that even in worlds known for darkness, a single moment of quiet bravery can change everything.